All right, guys, Blind Spiral here with Rick Duncan finally to get some interviews going. Rick obviously did not have a pick in the first round, or you traded back. I can't remember. Um, no, I didn't have a pick in the first. Yeah, fuck those picks from your previous owner. So didn't have a first round pick, so wanted to catch up with him a bit in the preseason before the regular season started. So, Rick, first of all, thanks for joining us, and also thanks for joining the league, kind of out of nowhere there. But welcome in. How's everything been so far for you? Well, if you ignore the state of your roster, how has everything been so far for you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for bringing me in the league. I, you know, last year when you guys did the startup, like I heard a lot about this league. Cam and K Migs, Corey are both in the league, right? So
Right.
uh, I'm in the league with both of them prior to this. So
Mm-hmm.
I heard quite a bit about it and never heard anything remotely negative. Just how awesome it is. So it's
Good.
cool to be here. My roster, don't love it.
Yeah.
It's not how I would typically go about constructing my roster, but one of the things, like, I don't know, I'm in like a bunch of leagues, and I always try to do something different every time I join a league.
Right.
And one thing I've wanted to do for a while is take on an orphan. So when you guys approached me with this, I was like, oh yeah, this is like kind of the perfect opportunity. I feel like, especially because it's contract, which is also interesting to me.
Right.
Um, so not how I would have built my roster, but um, I'm here for the challenge, so should
So
be.
you mentioned Cam Hoon and Corey, so that's the inaugurals and Brownout. Are those the only two people you know? Do you know anybody else, or did you know anybody? I know that there's now a league that 9 of the 12 of us are in, right?
Uh,
But prior to joining this league, was there any other? Did you know anybody else, or is it just the two of them that you know?
so I've been playing with Corey for a few years now. I'm in like a bunch of leagues with him because he's a degenerate, and I
Yes.
guess I am too.
Yes.
So he's always like, "Hey, check out this league." I'm like, "Fuck, another league?
Yeah.
All right." Um, but last year towards the end of the season, I think we both were getting kind of that itch, and so we both started our own leagues, like kind of around the same time. Uh, that a number of people from the contract league here
Right.
wound up joining through Corey's recruitment efforts. So uh, Cam and Corey, I'm in a league with and have been since last year.
Hmm.
Um, then the guys that you all were in the contract league with, a few of them joined those other two leagues, and then I came into this new gen contract league.
So
So
slowly but surely, almost. Well, you mentioned your roster a couple times now. Let's pull it up on the screen for everybody to take a peek at. So, you kind of mentioned once or twice now, not necessarily how you would build a roster. I don't want you to give any of your secrets away to potentially affect trade negotiations or things like that. But what was the big glaring thing that when you looked at it, you were like, oh no, or okay, at least I this, or somewhere in between? Like, what were some of your first thoughts when you looked at it?
uh, so a few things. The complete lack of future draft cap, I felt was rough. But depending on the roster, it's not necessarily a big deal.
Right.
Uh, but then combined with the roster and some of the I would consider fairly large contracts like Kyler and Stafford and Swift and Aaron Jones, I would say are probably the biggest. I think
Hmm.
the biggest contracts on my team right now. Um, you know, I feel like it's if you're gonna give up all that draft cap, you should really have more high end play.
Right.
Um, and I don't feel that this roster has those high end players overall. Like I don't necessarily dislike the guys that I just said, but I do think that their contracts are higher than I would prefer them to be.
Right. For where they're at and all. Especially too when you consider someone like Stafford. Someone was a big Stafford truther, and where's his contract on here? 113, 152. Kyler 127, 170, 243, 370. DeAndre Swift, I think that's my fault. Sorry, has this ridiculous deal as well because I was DeAndre Swift truther until middle of last year. Then I shipped him off. Um, do you take any solace knowing you at least kind of have all your picks this coming year? I mean, you're missing a couple picks, but you traded around and got some. But does that give you some peace of mind knowing that at least next year you've got that in your pocket, or um, you've got Aaron Jones's contract is expiring instead of $94. Um, does that are you kind of in a well, at least I have 2024? Like, is that your mindset already?
Yes and no. I will say I was pleased with how the rookie draft went. Um, I was able to sort of recoup some missing draft cap because I had like nothing before this. I was able to get my first back. I got some additional picks. Um, cleared some space. So that was a positive overall.
Right.
But man, I don't know. like,
Still a lot
uh,
going on.
yeah, like I feel like with the state of this roster and the assets I have, um, like it's not gonna be till 25, 26 that like I can maybe think about competing.
Yeah.
But
So how does that affect your strategy going into this year? So and the reason I ask this is because you and Chase kind of came in to a very similar situation. So Chase took over the other orphan in the league and kind of made a splash with like big spending on trades, and I'll take this and I'll pay for it and I'll do this and I'll do that. Whereas you've been a little bit steady Eddie with it. Do you think, going back, would you have tried to be more aggressive like Chase was? Are you kind of happy with what the moves that you made, right? Because I feel like your moves are a little bit less is more in a sense at the same time, right? Like you were able to explain, you just recouped your entire draft, you got your first round pick back. Like, are you kind of like do you think that was enough in your eyes that you could walk away from the draft and this and going into this next season like, okay, well, I'm in a good spot now?
yes and no. You know, Another thing I noticed when I like immediately when I took over this team is like app situation from this year was not good. It's better now. Like I moved Kittle, which is a big contract. Um, but I like I said before, like in terms of like high end talent, right? Like I don't have, and I don't have the cap space to get that. So like I also don't think I have like the contracts of the players that I have. Like I think they're being overpaid. So I think moving these guys, like yeah, I'll take on some of that cap hit if I need to, but I still think it's more difficult than um, it's easier said than done just in general. Like
Right.
people look at honestly, who wants to take Stafford for say I take 30 million $30 off, right? That'd be 83. Who wants Stafford for 83?
Yeah.
Like um so I don't know. I felt like this year is just gonna be kind of a wash. Like this team isn't good overall. I
Right.
do think I acquired some players that um, could have some upside. Um, I think are undervalued. So that was kind of the strategy that I took into the vet draft was let me try to get as many players as I can that I think have some upside for as cheap as I can.
Right.
So like I've got a bunch of guys on like $1 and $2 contracts that I think will have value. So maybe not, in 24. We'll see, but at least for this year, like just approaching it from like a 1 year perspective,
Yeah.
uh, I think I've got some guys that should have some value that could be, either help me in the end of year toilet bowl or could be trade chips.
Yeah.
Um,
okay,
like
I'll add
stat.
in this guy with Stafford, and I'll take off money for your
Right.
second or whatever it looks like.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Um, so you just mentioned the toilet bowl. You actually beat me in a sense to my next question. So if I'm not mistaken, you were one that read the entire rule book pretty quickly and had specific questions, whereas the other, I think, 10 people in the league have not read a page sometimes and will ask questions, which is totally fine. But I'm like you, I want to read everything meticulously, and I'm not. Other people did read the rule book really well, but I mean, people like Corey who has no idea what's happening and just DMs me for everything. So my favorite thing to do is respond with a screenshot of the rule book, by the way. But anyway, so do you have your heart set on a specific bracket you'd like to end up in, right? Because the toilet bowl, obviously, fighting for 101, 102, 103 is huge, but there's also the extra pick bracket. Um, if you've paid attention to the college class at all, everybody's saying it's a big three at the top with the two quarterbacks and Marvin Harrison Jr. Do you think you want to end up on the toilet bowl looking for that? Would you be happy with 105 and 113, or what's kind of your aim in your head?
I mean, I would say ideally, I'll have a top three pick or top two pick even. Um, but yeah, I'd be
Oops.
happy with 105 and 113.
Yeah.
Oh, everything all right?
Yeah. I pushed the wrong button. Sorry.
Okay,
The
no
music
worries.
stopped. So I panicked. Um, so yeah, you're aiming more for the 101, 102, more so than the 105, 113.
Ideally, yeah, but I'll take that extra pick. Like
Yeah.
I could use it.
Because in theory, I mean, I don't know, and I'm also thinking too far ahead. I feel like 105 and 113 could get you to 102, could get you to 103. 102 maybe not. I don't know, but I feel like that could maybe get you up there. Maybe a bit of an overpay, but like maybe you do 105, 113, and insert small piece here for 102 and medium piece. I mean, we're way too far in advance to speculate, but with some of the moves that Cam Hun made during the rookie draft, I feel like almost anything's possible with how he was able to kind of finagle around the draft board. Um, when you look at the other teams in the league, right? So this is something we talked about a little bit beforehand. Let's pull it up here. We are going to do a voting thing. Can't find it now. This is it. We are going to do like a little preseason rankings voting, which is kind of on your screen now. Wow, I should have been way more prepared than this. But let's pretend it's actually on your screen now. Where we're all going to be able to kind of vote and do like a little bit of a poll to see who kind of picks who to go where. I know you haven't looked at everybody super deep, but do you have any early predictions on how you think who makes the top four, who makes the championship, who's first, second, third? Any type of top three, bottom three, anything like that you'd be willing to share?
Um, yeah, I'm not super familiar with everyone's roster,
Right.
uh, but I will say I think you, Corey, and Cam have nice looking rosters. I mean, obviously injuries, right? But
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I would, I would be pretty surprised if the three of you didn't at least make the playoffs.
Right.
Um, Bottom, I mean, probably me and Chase,
Yeah.
but
Definitely. No offense. Definitely Chase. I feel like you've got enough pieces there that you could do something kind of funky if things fell right. With if Murray comes back well, if Hyatt takes over the receiving core, if Debo has the year he had 2 years ago,
if
Stafford and
Murray,
Swift look better. Like there's a lot of big questions there.
yeah, like
But
as of today, like I don't have a second quarterback, like a second starting quarterback.
yeah,
So, um, will Murray come back? Who knows? Um, Maybe what's Clayton Tune, I think, is the rookie in Arizona that I
yeah,
have. He has an outside shot of beating out Colt McCoy to start week one. Who knows,
yeah,
right? Like, I don't think I have zero shot, right? Like Chase, like he is tanking hard.
yeah.
Um,
He's all
I,
aboard.
but I would need a lot of things to work in my favor.
Right.
Uh, Not impossible, but pretty unlikely, I would say. And
What
could always make some trades, and who knows, right? But we'll see how things go.
Yeah, and you also have to consider too the two of you are in the same division, so that means you play each other twice a year. It also means you play the Diamond Dogs twice a year, and the implications twice a year. Um, so you have to factor that, and it'll be really interesting to see when you guys play each other, right? Because there's the fair play rules, so you have to try to win basically. Um, but it's always interesting when you're tanking and you're rooting for yourself to lose in the weirdest way possible. So it'll be interesting to see the two teams that have openly declared that they're on a sinking ship are playing each other, because I don't think anybody else, unless I'm missing somebody, but nobody else is really all aboard that train yet. The other 10, as far as I know, are full on in competing.
So I mean, I wouldn't say like I'm actively tanking.
Right,
I
right.
just don't think I have the roster to get to the playoffs
Fair, yeah.
unless things go very right for me, you know. And things would have to go very wrong for some other teams.
Yeah. Your week one opponent is the Diamond Dogs, so that should kick off the season in an interesting fashion. And the only reason I know that off the top of my head is because I know I play Chase, so you guys have to be playing each other, which could be a really good test. Diamond Dogs, I think you'd argue are currently probably power ranked second in the division, but that roster has some question marks of its own as well. But it also has some really positive pieces too. I mean, just having Jalen Hurts and Justin Jefferson, um,
Yeah.
at this point, put anybody in that. Who knows what we can do um, each week type bracket.
Does
Um,
he have a second starting quarterback?
I believe he does. He's got Desmond Ritter, who's allegedly a
Oh, Ritter.
starting quarterback. Also has Heineke, who's there as well, so he has the Atlanta Falcons starting
Yeah.
quarterback.
Okay.
So he does have two starting quarterbacks, but I think it's it. Sam Darnold is, there's speculation there on what's going to happen, but that is it in terms of the quarterbacks that he has. So um, he kind of has two, but I think he's, Coda's also aware that Desmond Ritter is a starting quarterback by definition only, and he's will not have one next year. But he did sign Gardner Minshew to an interesting contract with the hopes that Gardner Minshew succeeds or does well. But he signed him to a 3-year deal. So Gardner Minshew, I guess he's hoping will do some well for him, but I can't imagine that happens for more than 2-3 weeks with Anthony Richardson there.
I mean, unless say Rich gets hurt.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you've got a guy who can do it. But Minshew's such a sad story too. I feel like the guy could do it, but we'll never know. I wonder if he signs that deal, and takes the trade. Like if I don't know who has Colt McCoy right now. Let me see if this contracts page even works with all the additions. Colt McCoy. Oh, it's gonna be McCoy. Winlake Flynn has McCoy. If he offers you McCoy for something small, would you do that deal? Even though it's the handcuff to the other quarterbacks there?
No.
Yeah. That's tough. If you were in a better spot and you thought, okay, I'm competing this year, then maybe not so much. No,
No. I have zero interest in having Colt McCoy on my roster.
that's fair. By the way, Flynn's a huge Cardinals fan. You could probably sell him Kyler if you wanted to. In case you didn't know, I'm sorry, I'm not selling you another River Flynn.
I mean, he has the Cardinals logo as his avatar, I believe.
Oh yeah. So I'm not even doing it that badly. I don't think he has many other Cardinals players though. But oh well.
I mean, I will say, I'm a Giants fan, and I tend to try to avoid rostering Giants. And not always, right? Like, I want Saquon in general.
Right. Yeah.
But for this year, I want Waller. But
Are you a
just
Waller
in
truther
general.
this year?
Yeah.
I'm also a Waller truther. I feel like there are at least 3 of us. I don't know what the third one is, but not many people seem to believe in Waller this year for some reason when I think he has the potential to go off.
The biggest thing is just going to be can he stay healthy?
Yeah.
If he can stay healthy, he's going to be tight end 2 probably.
Tight end 2, damn. Okay. I don't know if he's going to be that high. You think he goes over Andrews?
Yes. If he stays
He
healthy.
stays healthy. Yeah. So points per game of games he actually plays fully. Yeah, I don't know about 2, but I definitely see him being top 5 again. He is one of the tight ends that does have tight end 1 in his range of outcomes for sure.
I think
there's only
Andrews
3 or 4
has.
of those, but
I think Andrews has a slightly down year. They have more pieces. They're gonna throw more. I think they spread it out a little more this year.
yeah,
But
with
we'll
Zay
see.
Flowers and OBJ and all that coming in.
Mhm.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I have no idea.
And practice camp reports are that, or training camp reports are that they're targeting running backs in the passing game more too. So,
Where in Baltimore?
mhm.
J.K. Dobbins sucks, boys. Thank God. If he plays this year and doesn't also get hurt.
Well, I mean, he's not practicing, so he's
Yeah,
not part of
shit.
that. But
Gus Edwards. I think I have Gus. I don't think I have Gus. Is that
I
Gus
think
Edwards?
Keaton Mitchell and shit, who's
Gus.
Melvin Gordon?
Yeah. Well, that's all right. Melvin Gordon fumbled 6 times in a week, so then I should be fine. All right, I got a couple more questions. And the last one being wrap it up. What are your thoughts on the state of your contracts versus other teams' contracts in the league? So when we take a look at what other teams are working with right now, if we look at the Jamarcus Russell division, between 3 teams, there's $8 in cap this year. Dan's got a pretty good amount of cap in 2024 with $221, but only 37 in 2025. Morgan's out of money this year, has $39 next year. Zoinks is already at negative 44. Allen's at negative 69. But you look at how many people in the negative for next year. 1, Rutro Raggy 1, Justin's Deli 2, Kung Su Pandas 3, Winlake Flynn 4. Implications pretty much 5.5. The inaugurals are even at 17 with only 14 people in the roster. Does that give you any hope knowing that you've got, I think, the second most cap space going the next year? Quick peaks. Second most cap space going the next year. Does that give you any hope that maybe you can start to push a little sooner? Or are you still kind of going to stay the course a bit and take your time and get it right?
Sorry, were you seeing I have second most going into next year?
So you have $232 in 2024.
That's not me.
You're right. You have 136. Don't look at this. That's not real. Well, okay. Well, you actually have slow growth, I guess, is a better way to look at it in comparison to some of the others, right? So, we see a dip down here for codes. I'm down, with 7 people on my team, I'm down negative $235. Dip down here again for Flynn, a dip down for Cam, barely up for Zoinks. I mean, a huge jump here, a dip down for 37 with 7 players. So rephrasing the question, does that give you any hope, that you can have it in a much better spot? Plus, there's the money that rolls over too. That's capped at $75. Does that give you any hope in heading towards 2024 into 2025?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, like 25, 26, I think at the earliest I'll be able to think about competing. I think the contracts I have right now, I mean, things can change, can make some moves, dump some of these contracts, who knows? But as of right now, today, the contracts I have, I think, are a little too burdensome for next year. Um, but we'll see after that. I will say, the way these contracts balloon in comparison to the growth of the cap, I think is really going to kind of change the dynamic in this league a year or two from now.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. A little bit of oversight there, but we're working through it, right? You joined early enough that you get to help shape it. Because, I didn't. We'll leave it there.
I mean, it's a percentage versus fixed, right?
Yeah.
Like it's compounding interest versus like a fixed interest. But,
yeah.
Yeah. So it's I think that's gonna like really change the dynamic of everything.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna see a lot. I mean, obviously rules can change and contract structures could change and how they grow can change, but with the way everything is right now, I have a feeling we're going to see cheaper vet contracts and lesser terms.
Yeah.
Like to me, the strat is gather as many firsts and seconds as you can, give them as long a contract as you can.
Yep.
And just take a bunch of super cheap vets. At most 2 years. But,
yep. And just keep doing it from there. So I do hope, not to plug the the things. Did you get to take a look? I sent it a while ago, and then we'll wrap this bad boy. Did you get to take a look? I sent like a contract changes proposal. So the long story short was like instead of 3 re-signings and an RFA, it was like 6 different types of things that you could do, and it was like you could do any 5 things you wanted to, and it was like restructure, re-sign, RFA, like a prove it deal where like they take a 20% cheaper deal, but then every time your team wins a game, it's like an extra dollar on the front, which multiplies across the years. There was some other one that was stupid too. Like an incentive-based contract, or like no, the incentive-based one was that one. The prove it was like if they end higher than they did, like let's say you re-sign your wide receiver 14. If they end higher than 14, you have to pay them a shit ton of money the next year, no matter what. Whereas if they end lower, it's like at a discount or something like that. I really like the idea of trying to figure out. I feel like if we just say restructuring is allowed, it's going to give certain teams a huge advantage. Like mine, it's a huge advantage if all of a sudden I can hold on to Mahomes and Allen because I can restructure their shit versus other teams. But if we can find like, okay, here's the things you can do or here's the penalty for it, I like it a lot more. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. But Justin Stelly wrote a thesis statement on why Blind Spiral fucked up making the rules and how we need to fix it. So I got a feeling
I haven't seen any of those.
Yeah, well, I'll send it to you afterward. I feel like you'd think it's interesting. But I know that
like
Alan was like passionate about this, so I think our off-season voting next year is going to be really, really interesting and should be fun.
I mean, this is I'm not digging into any numbers or anything, but I feel like one of the easiest things we could do is rather than a fixed amount on the cap, make it a percentage increase.
Yeah, that's basically what he was saying as well. Is just $50 a year isn't shit. Either bump that number up a bunch or, to your point, percentage it.
$50 isn't necessarily the issue. The issue is the way that the contracts compound yearly, like by a percentage. They don't compound by a fixed number the way the cap does.
I think the +5 was not a good idea as well. I think that really takes it head over heels for some of those bigger veteran contracts. I mean, when you add the +5 in there versus the not +5, I think it makes a huge difference. But that being said, I guarantee there's a few people who don't even know what the hell I'm talking about with the +5. So we're getting into the little nerdy analytics here. But this is the fun shit and why I spent so much time writing the book and why you read it.
I would hope everyone in the league knows about the +5.
They probably do. So for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, it's how your contracts, your veteran contracts go up by a percentage each year, +5. So the idea behind that was to make sure that there was a decent increase from year to year, but that decent increase might have been, way too much, which is why we've got Kyler Murray jumping from, I think he was 100 last year or something along those lines, a little under 100 to 370 in the end. It's a little excessive. Also, maybe not the best contract signing there, but that's a whole other conversation. So,
all of the above.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it. Any last thoughts, final words, anything like that? Just so in case you were wondering, K Migs was uncomfortably excited to hear your voice and see your face. So, any special shout outs or anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah, my name isn't actually RickDunkin. Also, the guy who is RickDunkin on Sleeper hired me to portray him. So, sorry, K-Migs, but this isn't the real RickDunkin.
Oh, damn. It's like Lemony Snicket from back in the day. Poor K-Migs is going to be so heartbroken. All right, that's going to do it for us. Hopefully talking to Dan Flash's Ruh-Roh Raggy and Chase at some point in time before the regular season begins, but that's catching up to us. What do we got? Like, how many weeks left? 4? Thank God. So we're getting there. In addition, this preseason ranking thing is going to be sent. Please fill it out. This way we can kind of celebrate and argue over who we think is the best or the worst team in the league. Should be kind of fun. Shouldn't take too long. Just kind of click. So if you think that Justin Stelly is the best team in the league, you click here. And then if you think Dan's the second, and then the inaugurals are 5th, and you click there, and then you vote, and then we'll kind of look at it after the fact. So that'll do it. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys all soon.